Hello, everybody. Welcome to our video, Beginner's Guide to U.S. Colleges and Undergrad Admissions. Today, I am your presenter, Spencer Barr, College and Career Counselor at Santa Barbara High School. All right, our agenda today. We are going to look at the different types of degrees you can earn at U.S. colleges. We will look at the specific U.S. colleges and university systems. We will look at the estimated cost of attendance to attend those schools, and then a few other key terms. I'll also show you where you can go on our website to find a very extensive list or glossary of other key terms. So let's jump right in. The big picture. Within the United States, there are over 4,000 colleges, which is a huge amount of opportunity out there for you. So here's a few fun images for you. Oldest college in each state, the most desirable, or AKA the most applied to, and then some hidden gems that a lot of students might not think about. A fun little trivia night exercise for you. How many colleges can you name? Out of those 4,000, how many do you think you can say? Might be fun. Okay, so let's talk about U.S. college degrees. So at the undergraduate level, which is a community college or a typical four-year school, you can earn an associate's, which is typically a two-year program, or a bachelor's, which is typically a four-year program. That's the undergrad level. Now, graduate level, so that's after your four-year degree, you can earn master's degrees or doctorate degrees. Now, masters are typically 1 or 2 years. Sometimes they can be 3 years. It sort of depends on the program and what you are studying. A doctorate would be then after a master's and are typically 4 to 8 years to earn your PhD if you're heading into being a doctor of some sort, or a doctorate of education, or there's other doctorate programs out there too. So that's typically 4 to 8 years after your master's. Okay. And then there's a few other options out there that are typically much faster and you can earn them much quicker. And they're usually before you earn your undergrad degree, or returning students, or maybe you head off to your community college and don't want an associate's, you want to just go in to get some extra training. So that would be these other options. So a minor. So a minor is actually earned at a four-year school. So if you head to a four-year school and your major emphasis degree, your bachelor's that you're shooting for example, myself was history. So I earned a bachelor's in history, but I also ended up with a minor in athletic coaching from UCSB, my alma mater. I was really interested in coaching at the time. So a minor is typically about a third the amount of classes that it would take to get a major. So it's oftentimes around 6 classes or so, 5 or 6 classes, and you can earn a minor. A certificate. So certificate you can get from a 2-year school or community college, and it's very similar to a minor in number of classes. It could be 5 or 6 or 7 classes, and you get a certificate. An emphasis. So this is typically at a 4-year school. So for example, myself with majoring in history and earning my bachelor's in history, I had an opportunity to focus more on a specific type of history. So I could have earned my history bachelor's degree with an emphasis in American studies, or an emphasis in European studies, or something like that. So it's within your bachelor's degree, but it's a little bit more targeted focus on a specific part of that bachelor's degree. So that's typically what an emphasis is. Industry certifications. So these oftentimes can pop up while you're in your job or in your career. So you can continue to develop skills to further your career or further your job. Those are often called industry certifications. And then same thing with trainings. So if you're in your career field, so for example, myself within counseling, multiple times a year, I will go to an all-day training or I'll do an online training to, again, further my skills. Okay, so that's overall look at US colleges and degrees. So let's move on. Types of colleges out there. Within the US system, there are basically 4 types of schools out there. Community colleges, which I've already mentioned, are 2-year degrees, and they're all over the place. In every single state, there are a lot of community colleges out there. Public colleges or universities, those would be your 4-year colleges. So within California, as a couple examples, we have the Cal State system, the California State University system, and then we have the University of California system, which we'll dive into in a couple minutes. Then we have our private colleges and universities. So nationwide, there are over 1,000 of them. Within California, there's 75. There's a couple more than 75 within California. And then outside of California, there's this notable group of private colleges called the Ivy League, which is on the East Coast. Very highly selective schools out there. And then we also have vocational or technical schools. We'll go into those in a little bit, but we'll see that they can be blended into community colleges or they can be separate. All right, so let's jump right into community colleges. So as I mentioned earlier too, community colleges offer associate's degrees only. There are a couple community colleges out there that are starting to explore the idea of offering a couple bachelor's degrees. But for the most part, you're going to earn an associate's degree at a community college, sometimes also a certificate. They offer majors that would not be available at most 4-year colleges. So for example, police academy, firefighter, a lot of 2-year nursing programs. That's what you can find at community college. They are located in pretty much every major city throughout the United States. And most of the time they don't offer housing. There are some states that will have housing right next to a community college to help students out, but most of the time they don't offer housing. They can oftentimes also be significantly less expensive. Santa Barbara City College, for example, 2 free years if you graduate from a local high school. So that's extremely less expensive, free. Can't get better than that. Okay? A lot of students will try, maybe apply to a 4-year school and decide maybe not to go, or maybe it's too expensive. So they might start their journey at a community college and then transfer. As a lot of students will do that. A lot of students will also just go to a community college and graduate with their associate's degree and jump right into a career from there. A lot of flexibility with community colleges. And then within California alone, there are over 115 community colleges. So spread out north to south, all over the place. Any place you live in California, there's going to be a community college somewhat nearby. The University of California system. So this is our flagship research university system. Technically there are 10 campuses throughout the US, not throughout the US, throughout California, but only 9 of them are eligible for undergrads. So there's a graduate school only located in San Francisco, not on this map here, but there are 9 undergraduate campuses, and they vary greatly in terms of location. The northernmost you can see on the map here is Davis, southernmost is San Diego. Size, huge difference. UCLA is the biggest at over 31,000 undergrad students, and Merced, which is the youngest UC at about 15 years old, and also the smallest, but they're at about 7,200 students or so. And then majors. Huge difference in terms of majors across the UC system. So if you're starting to explore your majors, make sure you're looking at which colleges offer those majors, because they are quite different. And then make sure you look at all of these campuses. If you're thinking about applying to the UC system, make sure you look at each individual one, because again, there are a lot of differences between them. Okay, the Cal State system. within California. So there's 23 of these, and they are spread out as far north as Humboldt, which is really close to the Oregon border, and then as far south as San Diego. These are known a little bit more for your universities where they started sort of as a teaching colleges. So you go to this college and you learn applicable skills that you can jump right into a career. That's how the CSU system started, but they've grown from that. But they've kept that sort of core value of learning by doing at many of the Cal states. Okay, so they're less focused on research and more focused on preparing you for the next step in your career. All right, outside of California, we have other notable public school systems. So University of Texas has quite a few public research universities spread out across the state of Texas. And then very well known in the state of New York, SUNY system. The SUNY system is actually kind of unique where the system itself has both 2-year colleges, 4-year colleges, grad schools, and some technical schools too. So the entire SUNY system encompasses all those different types of schools. You can see on the map at the very bottom a key. It shows you which one are university, which one are technical colleges, community colleges. You can see they're spread out across New York. Other states that aren't as big have public school systems too, but there's usually just maybe 1 or 2 in other states. Okay, some advantages of public colleges. They can typically be less expensive than private schools. In most cases, they are less expensive than private schools. Oftentimes, they're easier to get into too. They're not as selective, so the admission rate is usually higher at most public schools. Oftentimes, they are quite a lot bigger than private schools. So if you're bigger, most of the time, you'll have more majors to choose from. And then I also just mentioned this here, larger campuses typically located in larger metropolitan areas. And because they're in those larger cities, larger metropolitan areas, they can have a lot of opportunities for internships, for community service, for job training in those major metropolitan areas. Okay, private colleges out there. There's different flavors of private colleges. I like to call them flavors. You have your liberal arts, and that's sort of your general education studies where you're learning a little bit of everything, but you also end up with a major that's specific to what you are studying and training. So you're studying a little bit of everything and you're focusing. So that's what a liberal arts university or college would be. Some ones in California here, we have Occidental, which is former President Obama's alma mater. We have the Claremont schools, Claremont colleges down in Claremont, Eastern LA. We have Westmont, just right down the road, a couple miles away from Santa Barbara High School. And then Pomona, that's another one. There's a lot of other ones in California too, but here's a couple examples. Then we also have our comprehensive research private schools. So a couple notable examples would be Stanford up in the Bay Area, USC in Los Angeles, and also Caltech in Los Angeles. So they're focused on research. Then we have our faith-based schools. So a couple ones to highlight here would be Biola down in Los Angeles, Point Loma down in San Diego, and then Westmont again here, just a couple miles away. And then also on the private schools side of things, we have specialized schools. So these would be your schools that you're more focused in the arts, performing arts, fine arts, music. So conservatories within music. So a couple examples here, Cal Arts, Berklee College of Music, which is actually on the East Coast, and the same with Juilliard before dance and performing arts. Okay, so some advantages of private colleges. Each private college can make their own admissions requirements and can oftentimes make exceptions for special situations. For example, most public schools, you have an application fee to apply to their college. And a lot of the times the college can't waive that fee. With private colleges, you could simply ask, And a lot of private colleges will waive that application fee. So that's sort of an example of they can modify their requirements for special situations, um, specifically within financial aid too. There are a lot of opportunities for really good financial aid, and sometimes you can talk to the financial aid office and see if they will increase the aid that they can give you. So private colleges can usually be a little bit more flexible. I mentioned this with financial aid. That sort of comes from the fact that they have a lot more money available for merit scholarships, also for student support services too. So a lot more money in endowment that they can put back towards their students. Private colleges are typically a lot smaller than public schools. There are some that are the same size, but most of the time they're much smaller and have much smaller student enrollment. Um, with that comes most of the time smaller classes, more direct contact with faculty, more student services available to you. A lot of positives to both having more money and a smaller college. But if you're not looking for that, if you're a student that's looking for a much bigger environment than, let's say, your high school size, then you would want to be looking at the larger private schools and also public schools too. All right, quick note about acceptance rates. So you'll see this on every list of rankings out there. You'll see this on pretty much all marketing material that comes out from colleges. What is their acceptance rate, or what is their admissions acceptance rate? There's a couple different phrases that they can put in. So within all these 4,000 colleges nationwide, there's only 47 out of those 4,000 that admit 20% or less of incoming freshman applicants. And only 2 of those 47 are public schools. That means 45 are private schools. So only 47 colleges nationwide that admit 20%. There are 2,785 colleges that admit between 21 and 100% of their applicants. Now, if you do the math there, 2,785 plus 47 doesn't equal anywhere close to 4,000. That's because you look at your community college system that accepts 100% of all students. Okay? That's not even in this list here. So nationwide, again, 4,000 colleges, both 2 and 4 year. Just look at those numbers and make sure when you are developing your college list that you spread it around and then you develop a balanced list of schools that are selective, maybe a couple of those 47, but also quite a few of those 2,785. All right, vocational technical schools. I said much earlier that they can be blended into the community college. So you can develop, or the community college can have a separate but combined vocational or technical school. So these vocational technical programs are typically geared toward a specific subject area or a specific skill or trade that you are trying to learn. So a couple examples here: electrician, plumber, mechanic. The nursing program at Santa Barbara City College, that is a vocational school within a community college. So you're learning that nursing program. Oftentimes that nursing program will set you up for both a career right in nursing or to be able to transfer to a 4-year school to earn a 4-year degree in nursing. So it can set you up for both. One nice thing about vocational technical schools is you can oftentimes complete certification or training in as little as a year or even less. Sometimes it can even be a few months, and you can develop some trainings or some certifications to either move you up in a career or get you started into a career. Okay, let's spend a few minutes talking about costs of all this stuff. So public 2-year colleges, so nationwide, the average of tuition fees is only about $3,400. So nationwide, that's the average. Okay. Within California, that is usually a little bit more expensive, but locally, Santa Barbara City College, we have the Promise program. And so that covers 2 free years The entire state of California has added a promise program as well. There are some restrictions to that, but that $3,400 price should go down for most of you if you go to a different community college somewhere else in California. Public four-year colleges, again, this is a national average, but tuition and fees is about $9,400 for tuition and fees. Public four-year colleges for out-of-state students. So this is one thing that we need to pay attention to with public colleges. If you're a California student, your public colleges would be the UC system or the Cal State system. And so you'd be paying less in tuition and fees if you go to an in-state public college. If you decide to leave California and go to, let's say, University of Arizona, public college in Arizona, you'd be paying more for tuition and fees. So it goes up because each public school system within their state discounts for their in-state students because they're set up and they're partially paid for by the state that the public school system is involved in. So California, the state of California, helps pay for the Cal State system and the UC system to keep their tuition low enough for in-state students to afford to go there. Private four-year colleges. So private colleges, it does not matter what state you grew up in and what state you're going to, it's going to be the same price. So a nationwide average is about $32,000 for tuition and fees. So beyond tuition and fees, there's a lot of other costs out there. There's housing, there's books and supplies, there's oftentimes transportation, either to and from the college or parking fees. There's a lot of other things that you have to consider with average costs. And that goes into the total cost of attendance. So a couple examples here for in-state, and like I said, with the public schools here. So these first three colleges on here are all public universities. So the in-state cost is that number you see, and then there's also an out-of-state cost. Now these numbers are total cost of attendance. So that includes everything that I mentioned a minute ago. It includes tuition and fees, it includes transportation, it includes housing, food, all of that, books and supplies, all of that, includes everything. And then the private schools, the last four on here are all private schools. So that cost is going to be the same cost regardless of where you're going to and coming from. Okay. I do want to say something here. So total cost of attendance, that number there, very few students pay that full, we call it full freight. Very few students pay that full cost of attendance. Financial aid comes into play here. If you fill out your FAFSA or your DREAM Act, then those numbers will go down for most students out there. So don't let that number scare you too much. You have to pay attention to it, but don't let it scare you too much. Those numbers should come down. All right, now, basic admission requirements. For each university and college out there, there are specifics for them and for their applications. But the basic requirements, the primary requirements, you're looking at your academic and scholarship requirements. You're looking at exam requirements, so the SAT, the ACT. But lately, there have been quite a few colleges that are now test optional. So that's an asterisk next to that one. That might not be a requirement anymore for you. And then subject requirements. So those are all the classes that you took in high school. Your A through Gs, for example, are the subject requirements to get into the UC system or the Cal State system. So those are your primary. Those are what's going to be on just about every application out there. The secondary, and these can be sometimes optional, or these can be, if you're applying to some private schools, they will ask more of these. So for example, extracurriculars, those could be your clubs, your sports, your community service and volunteer work, maybe a paid job. That's your extracurriculars. Leadership, that sort of goes into extracurriculars where sometimes colleges will want to see leadership experience that you've developed. honors and awards. With the UC system, for example, honors and awards is sort of built into the extracurricular section, but these could be like National Honor Society or California Scholarship Federation, or maybe you received a scholarship that was considered an award, things like that. An essay, depending on the application, they will ask you maybe a couple essay questions or maybe one big essay question that you have to write on. Letters of recommendation. These would be from your counselor or one or two teachers. And then also supplemental questions or other essays. So there are some applications out there that ask you to write multiple essays and multiple questions. So when you are at that point senior year and you are applying to these schools, then make sure you know the requirements and make sure you know all of the requirements for you to be able to successfully submit your application. All right, folks. Last thing I want to talk about is a few key terms out there. Common application and coalition application. These are two big platforms out there, application platforms that have a lot of partner universities that take them. So if you're looking at both of these, you could potentially apply to over 1,000 four-year colleges out there. There are some colleges that will allow you to use the Common App to apply, and only the Common App. So make sure you know that. There are other colleges that will allow you to submit the Common App or the coalition, or sometimes they might have their own application. So you can choose how you apply. SAT and ACT, those are those standardized tests that are in many cases now test optional. Many colleges are test optional, but they're still standardized for possible admission to these four-year schools. Even if they're test optional for admissions, check the college because some colleges are using them to give you merit scholarships. So make sure you check when you're applying. Early decision and early action. So these would be in mostly private schools. You have an option of applying earlier in the admissions cycle. So most colleges will have a deadline that's called regular decision. There are other colleges that will have regular decision, but then they will also have early action and sometimes early decision. Early decision comes as a binding contract. So if you say you're applying to X school early decision, that means that school is your #1 choice. And if you get in, you will go because you're signing a contract saying that if you get in, you will go. You sign a contract, your parents sign a contract, and your counselor signs a contract. Then there's also early action, which is non-binding. It just allows you to apply early to a school and find out early if you've been accepted or not. FAFSA and DREAM Act, those are those major financial aid documents that you should be applying to your senior year because it will give you potential qualifications for scholarships or possibly for student loans. Really important to fill out the FAFSA and the DREAM Act. FAFSA or the DREAM Act. The DREAM Act is for students that are undocumented. So you would be filling that out, and that's specifically within California. FAFSA is nationwide. Cost of attendance. We just talked about this a couple minutes ago. Cost of attendance is the overall cost of attending college. That's all those costs and fees wrapped into one. That's cost of attendance. EFC stands for Expected Family Contribution. You get that number after filling out the FAFSA or the DREAM Act. And that EFC is sort of ballpark, but realistically, how much could your family be able to pay each year for you to attend college? That's what an EFC is. A lot of scholarships will ask you for that EFC number. So make sure you are completing that FAFSA or DREAM Act so that you have that EFC number. And these are just a couple key terms for you to know. For a comprehensive list, go to our school website under College and Career Center. At the very bottom, there is a glossary of terms, 100 terms out there that you can take a look at related to higher education. Okay, so if you like this video and want to see a few more, check out our YouTube channel. Just Google my name and YouTube, and you'll come across our school logo, and all our videos are on that. You can also follow our Instagram or check out all the really great resources we have on our website. So thanks very much, and hope to see you on another video. Take care.